everyone, and today's guest is a leading penetration tester and ethical hacker. He has an obsession with compromising IoT devices. He's an expert in hacking everything from ships and planes to hot tubs, and he's also a really great speaker and writer. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Ken Monroe. So Ken, hi.
Hey, how you doing? I thought you were about to talk about someone else for a moment.
So I first met you at a digital ship conference in London, and you were hacking a kettle live on stage, I think.
Oh, this one. Yes.
Probably that kettle,
that was fun,
exactly. Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah, I find shipping a really fascinating area, actually. It's like turning the clock back, I don't know, 10, 15 years for regular network security. You're finding stuff that, I don't know about you, but I've forgotten how to exploit now. So it's like going back to school all over again.
Yeah, so actually one of the first questions that I wanted to ask you, which is quite a difficult question to answer, was how do you think your family would describe what you did for a living?
Oh my gosh. The family does understand what I do, although I think they're often confused by some of the weird things that make their way home. I don't know, getting back from a business trip and going straight home, and then the kids getting taken to school in the same car the following morning. And on occasion, there's been some unusual things in the passenger seat, which aren't really appropriate for a 6-year-old. There's definitely some odd looks. And yeah, I think they've kind of given up on me now.
But I'm sure that they will be inspired by your desire to break everything and kind of follow in their dad's footsteps.
I don't know, actually. I think they look at the whole field just a bit scared. And frankly, I can see why. There's a lot of weirdness goes on here. And I don't know, I've always felt that it's, try and seek out the unusual, try and find the interesting, try and find things that are going to grab people's attention, but do it in an entertaining manner. Because I don't know about you, but I think one of the best talks I've watched, I mean, the speakers I hold in high regard, people like Charlie Miller, Chris Balasek. I remember it was them that inspired me to get the business into car hacking.
Do you remember what the first thing was that you broke?
Do you know what I do, actually? I meant to bring one with me. I think the very first thing I looked at was a long, long time ago. My next door neighbor randomly was an installer of smart building management systems. And we're in the pub, and he said, I don't know, I'd never asked him what he did, which is weird considering I'd lived next to him for nearly 10 years. And he said, I'm doing building management systems. Now, what's one of those? He brought one for me, and amazingly, it was IP based, jacked it in, and we started playing, and it was just full of everything. It was proper OWASP, top 10 of everything on the embedded web servers. So, yeah, and we discovered later that it was the same controllers that were installed in Heathrow's T5. I think they've changed them now, but yeah, it's just random stuff. And embedded systems, I love them, because you can pick them up and play with them. Yeah,
no, totally. And like you've done, I mean, I'm a big fan of everything you've done and your writing and your blog, especially. I really enjoy reading. And you've basically hacked everything from sex toys to hot tubs to kids' toys to just literally everything. What sort of category of IoT device has surprised you the most in terms of how terrible it was from a security perspective?
That's such a huge question. So I know our blog's full of stuff on IoT, but we probably start a disclosure every single day on average. So I spend a lot of my time just looking after those disclosures. And it's funny, quite a lot of them are really well managed, but it's the ones that are managed badly that are ones that make it onto the blog. And it's often the complete lack of thought that bothers me the most. And those are the ones that, I usually make it onto the blog. And I don't mind an organization getting security wrong, because it's difficult to be perfect. But you can respond when a researcher reaches out. It doesn't take time to actually go and say, okay, well, thanks for contacting us with your concerns. What are they? Tell us about them. We'll do our best to fix them. It's when you get stonewalled or silenced that pisses me off. And that's why I really like the hot tub. First of all, because it was ludicrous getting to do a talk in a hot tub with a device that had no authorization. So it had authentication, but so often we find that it's the devices in IoT are missing authorization. So they authenticate you, but they don't then check that the requests are coming from you. They might identify you by a device serial or something, often related to the device MAC address, but they don't check that that's the device that should be associated with your account. So then you can go and do something crazy like, well, okay, I'll log into my account, but then I can make requests from someone else's account. And bizarrely, it was a Welsh guy called Kerry who mentioned this to me. And so we had a go at his hot tub and he had a go at mine. And now we work together, which is great. So, I think one of the most impressive I've found, the bit that always bothered me is when you find vulnerabilities and things that affects people's lives. And by that, I mean killing people. We've all seen the stories and tech cons where people have done things with smart medical devices. And about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, we found something. And it was our belief that if we'd exploited that, people would have died. I can't go into any detail because it would be really irresponsible. But do you know what actually gave me some reassurance is I tried to make contact with someone at the vendor on a Sunday and they responded within 10 minutes. I was that impressed. And they had it fixed. But I had a temporary fix within about an hour and they fixed it properly by the following morning. I just thought, you know what, that's great. That's really cool. Well, I've got a thing over here, actually. This is a good example. You might remember this thing. This is the Swan home security cam. And it had exactly that problem I was talking about device authorization. It identifies using a device ID, and the device ID isn't random enough. So you can easily jump into other people's kit. And actually, one of the things we often look for, and the reasons why many of our discoveries will be certain types of vulnerability, is you need to be very careful about the Computer Misuse Act and DMCA. What we'll often do is buy 2 or 3 or 4 of the same device and associate them to different accounts and try and access our own data on another device. So that way we can't be accused of doing anything underwater or underhand. But in this particular case, actually, my friend Scott Helm, who we did some fun research with from time to time, he had one and said we could have a go. And within a matter of minutes, one of my colleagues, Vangelis, was staring at footage from his office desk up in the north of England. But he also has the best Lego we discovered.
Which you've now seen for yourself.
Absolutely.
So when you do a disclosure then, what would you say would be like the ideal textbook response from a company?
Oh, we get them from time to time. Yeah, probably 1 in 5 is just perfect. So you pop someone a line. There's first of all, there's a method to contact them. So security at or PCERT or something like that. You email them, they come straight back. Go, even if it's just to say, we'll take your report. We're reading it. Thank you, or whatever. Or the method to contact them. That's all we want, is just to know that someone's got something, someone's reading something, and then everything's fine. And we've had a few recently. So we had some disclosures with Lenovo. We've got one we've just started with Citrix, where they know how to do it. So they've come straight back. Said, great, thanks. Yeah, let's do PGP. Let's get your report to us safely. And they've kept us updated every week or so, and it's great. And life is just easy.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that it's more difficult for other organizations. And you don't have to be an expert at receiving vulnerability reports to receive one. You just have to talk. We've been working on another device, which I think interesting. We're probably going to do some work with Troy Hunt on. And first of all, the vendor stonewalls. They didn't reply to our email for a month. So all you have to do is reply. It doesn't take effort or time to reply, And I'll give people some slack. The COVID-19 epidemic is slowing things down for everyone. I get that, but yet they were still tweeting.
Yeah.
They still find time to market their product, but they didn't have time to reply to a security disclosure. And actually, in fairness, when we pushed them hard and told them, look, don't reply, we will disclose. We don't want to, but we'll have to. They actually came back and said, next day and said, oh, we've written new firmware. Actually, we've been doing it for the last 2 weeks. So you could have told us.
Yeah. So obviously you've got like the situation there where they just haven't communicated with you. But have you ever had a situation where they've actually come back and been, maybe a little bit aggressive, maybe a bit dismissive, or just generally replied, but been a bit combative?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And do you know what? It annoys me when it happens because it becomes more time consuming. But then actually, if that process of failing to deal with disclosure becomes the story. So most times we'll find something, if it's interesting enough and there was an interesting finding, it's been fixed and everyone's safe, we'll probably blog about it because the process might be useful to someone else. Someone else might learn from that. But what ends up happening is that's no longer the story. The story becomes their inability to manage that process well, and you start getting threatened. And I think a good example of that is one going down right now. My colleague Andrew Tierney, or Cybergibbons, has been investigating with another researcher used with the handle HookGab some issues around Xiaomi browser privacy. Instead of engaging, Xiaomi have come out all guns blazing and basically stated that the research is misguided or false. That's kind of a high risk strategy, isn't it? If you're staring at evidence that says that something is the case, and then you come out with heavy PR and go, it's not, at some point that's going to come up and bite you in the backside. And already they've backed down to a point, but there's a lot more research going on right now. Good example being the BitFi, the cryptocurrency wallet that John McAfee was involved in. The story's not the vulnerability anymore. The story is the horrific a way that they've actually managed that disclosure process. And
I was going to say that. I was going to say that I can't even remember what it was that you guys discovered. I just remember, all I remember is how they handled it and the very public kind of denial of responsibility.
And it was mad. And again, what that does is, I love this community so much because when the community or a member of the community is threatened, it's amazing how other excellent, responsible researchers will pile in. And all of a sudden, from being a 1 or 2 man research project, all of a sudden you've got 30 or 40 people all piling in, doing their own research, and they're going to find more stuff, right? We as a team found something, we've got areas of expertise and speciality. But then when the whole industry piles in, it's curtains, and in the end, BitFi pulled their product, they rewrote it. We've kind of moved on from that now. But what is fascinating is how the attention of the world becomes the story of disclosure rather than the vulnerability. And I think that's what got Andrew and one of the colleagues on the team a Pony Award 2 years on the trot for the same damn device. And that's a first.
Incredible. That's nuts, isn't it? So do you find that, is there a way you communicate the disclosure, the initial contact when you make a disclosure, that's in such a way that you have learned now through experience is going to likely get a better response?
I think the number one rule is don't be a dick. It's very easy for researchers to forget that this is the first time that the vendor has heard about a problem. Whilst you might have been researching it for a month and be really familiar with it and had lots of conversations with the team, this is the first time. And it's very easy to get high and mighty and pile in, where actually you need to start simple. You might be talking to the wrong person. So it might be that someone on, I don't know, the social media team comes back to you. It might be someone in customer support. They don't know what vulnerability is. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't necessarily know how to disclose it. So I'll often, depending on who I'm talking to, is actually suggest what sort of person might understand the report, how someone might forward it or deal with it in the business. I think it's also important not to get combative too early. There comes a time for upping the ante, but I think you have to remember these people working for these firms. What you don't want to do is be seen as a nasty, unhelpful researcher. Your job is to be as constructive and helpful as you possibly can, but bear in mind you do need a response as well.
At the moment, we've got a bit of an interesting situation with the lockdown, and the government looks set to release this new contact tracing app. And there's been an awful lot of commentary, both positive and negative, on these contact tracing apps. What are your thoughts on it?
I understand why the government's done what it's done, because they want to gather statistical and epidemiological data. I get it. Versus the Apple and Google approach, which is very much peer-to-peer only. I get that for privacy reasons. So it's a very difficult balance, isn't it? Do we trust the government to take that data, use that data for only what they say they're going to use it for, and then get rid of it all? Or they're going to allow academics to study it in an anonymized fashion later? Or we're going to delete it all? We just don't know. And I think that's, as individuals, we have to sit there and weigh those two sides of the argument. Yeah, I'm undoubtedly sure if someone wanted to, and the same motivated, you could abuse our privacy through the app. But do we trust the government? Or do we accept that actually it's a cost to pay through getting out of this lockdown?
Yeah.
Very, very difficult.
It is very difficult. And speaking of travel, we probably all remember what an aeroplane was, maybe. can definitely watch it on TV and remind ourselves what an aeroplane actually looked like. So you've done, I need to talk about this because I just find this amazing, and I saw the stuff that you've done at conferences and stuff on this, but you've done a lot of work now on looking at aviation security and security on planes. What are the kind of unique challenges that industry faces?
Wow, that is such good questions. Like you, Lisa, I travel far too much, and actually I'm quite enjoying some of the webinar bases. Although I'll be honest, I've actually for the first time started to miss travel this week. I'm also a pilot, not a very good one, but I am a pilot, and it's an area that's interested me for a very long time. I think one of the things that concerns me is there have been quite a lot of researchers over the past few years that have published some quite alarming stories, and I think we're not helped by the media and the lack of information about security of aviation. So every time something's published, it explodes. It's a huge story. It's broadsheet. It's front page news. Planes can be hacked. When you actually pick them apart, there are so many controls in place. It's actually extremely difficult to do that. So we've been very lucky to have access to end-of-life airframes. One of the things you should never do is you as a passenger should never attempt to interfere with airplane systems. It's extremely irresponsible and very dangerous. However, the challenge is getting hold of systems to play with. It's not like I can go onto Amazon and buy an Airbus A320, right? So that's the biggest obstacle, is the fact we can't get access to the equipment to test it, so I can't buy bits. However, we were lucky. We were given access through an airplane junkyard to a number of Airbus airframes. And that whilst they have the engines removed, they're sold off straight away. With ground power on, actually all the aviation systems work. So the avionics operates, the controls work, the cockpit systems work, which is great. And we were given carte blanche to go and hack a plane. And I cannot tell you how much we learned. And what reassures me is the more we learned, the more we realized how many controls there are. You can't just sit there and sniff data on the flight control surface network and tell the elevators to do something else. It doesn't work like that. What I would say is the security model for most airplanes is still primarily physical. Because you have good security at most commercial airports, if you can get physical access to, say, for example, the avionics bay, there are things you can do. But it's very difficult to do because you've got to get past big burly guys. You've got to get airside where there are lots of security controls. And even then, to have the level of knowledge and skill to be able to tamper with the being evident, very, very difficult indeed. What I would say is as airplanes become more connected, we start to see some of the issues that we experienced in maritime start to enter the frame. So we're seeing very similar SATCOM terminal receivers. We're seeing very similar satellite connectivity issues as well. So you start to see some issues pop up the more connected the airplane becomes. And that's a good thing. The more connected the plane is, the more efficient it is. The less our flight tickets cost us, the longer the engines last, so the more the cost drops. So that's great. But I think it's very easy to get very excited about plane hacking and go, hey, we can hack stuff, where actually it doesn't really work like that. There are a lot of controls that mitigate those issues.
And I do think that's a big problem that we have generally as an industry. There is a kind of tendency, I think, to sort of scaremonger a little bit more than perhaps we need. And I think that the problem that you then encounter, certainly you all have encountered this with the shipping industry, as I have, for instance, is that they'll often say, well, okay, that's fine, but where are these ships that are getting hacked and crashed into rocks? And you have to find a way of kind of, in some ways, reining it back enough so that you emphasize what the security flaws are, but not get accused of sort of scaremongering and sensationalism. So how do you go about that message? Because that's a really difficult message to get the balance right.
Yeah, isn't that just the worst comment? I remember trying to disclose a vulnerability in Arga cookers. You couldn't imagine something more non-technical, but yet they've made an Arga Smart. And we did the right thing. We tried really, really hard to get hold of them and ended up speaking to one of their senior technical staff. We said, well, we've had no reports of our Argas being hacked. I was like, that's not the point. We're trying to help you stop them being hacked. Really, really annoying when we're trying to do the right thing. And you're right. So this industry is being accused, I think rightly so, of creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that is not helpful. But I think we have to make sure we tread that very careful line. And I think we do that with an aviation. There are problems, but there are controls. It's not like you can just go hack a plane. So a lot of our work, research, and content that we published, if you read it, it treads a very careful line between pointing out the industry is by and large on top of security, but that there are issues, but that there are controls. And it would be very easy to go and get a lot of press coverage, frankly, and scare the public silly and do even more damage to the aviation sector than has already been damaged. But it wouldn't help. Yeah, it's about building trust with that industry. I really like the efforts of the DEFCON Aviation Village, or Mouse Aerospace Village. And it's been about treading that really fine line to actually build a bridge between research communities and vendors and manufacturers. So much so that some of the manufacturers are really starting to trust researchers like ourselves, and now starting to bring product to the table to say, well, have a go. And that's fantastic. Isn't that a great result?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think there's a lot of that in our industry, unfortunately. For example, the sort of juice jacking scandal as well. I mean, like you said, lots of things are possible, but again, you have to look at the context, and you'd have to get physical access to the mall. You'd be completely untargeted for a start, because you have no idea whose phone's going in what. And you have to start to, I guess, work out, is this really something someone's going to do? Why would they do that when there's other targets? So I guess one of my next questions actually that I wanted to ask was, obviously you've uncovered lots of vulnerabilities with all different types of things. How much do you think is down to the users and how their level of awareness of security, and how they configure the new whatever it is that they've just bought, and how much of that responsibility sits with the vendor?
So again, we have to educate users. It's the easiest way to hack an IoT device is probably going to be through the password that the customers reused and was exposed through a breach and is now indexed on have I been pwned. But the vendor still has responsibilities. And I find it quite frustrating that many vendors will say, well, our IoT device was hacked because customers reuse passwords. Yeah, but did you try multi-factor authentication? Even if it's two-step verification on an SMS, it's going to make that attack one heck of a lot harder. So I think vendors have got a lot of responsibility there to defending against consumers who don't care, because they need to accept, and there's been lots of cases around this, is the organization that gets the bad PR is not the consumer, it's the vendor, and that's going to affect your sales down the line. So I think it's really, really important that vendors build in processes to deal with consumer apathy around security. And if you do that, then your reputation is going to be much harder to damage.
So do you think the reason that non-security people who aren't in InfoSec, I guess, sort of fail at security is because of apathy? Do you think that's the reason that they're not sort of, because I read something that the uptake of SMS 2FA even was so insanely low that it was essentially almost nobody has done it. And I certainly know my family and my parents, I've basically had to beat them with a stick to get them to do it. So I'm kind of wondering where you think that is. Do you think it's apathy, or do you think it's just sort of that they don't understand it and they don't want to try, or what do you think that's about?
Well, security is not my problem, is it, as a consumer? That's the issue, isn't it? It's not my problem. The consumer makes the assumption that security is the vendor's problem, right? Even though they do have a part to play. So I think it's so important that vendors take steps. So I think MailChimp was the first. They actually offered a discount to their service. I say discount because I'm sure actually it was actually just the regular price. They offered a 10% discount if you signed up with MFA. I think, brilliant. What a great way of incentivizing consumer behavior. They try and upsell you to everything else. So why not try and effectively upsell you to using MFA? Because it reduces risk. Why doesn't everyone do something similar? I've seen a few vendors now start to incentivize customer use of MFA, which is just amazing.
So do you think there are any really big no-nos for IoT devices that consumers might want to put in their home? Are there anything that you've seen that you think absolutely don't do it?
Hang on. You know where this is going, don't you, Lisa?
It's going somewhere dark, I'm sure.
It's going somewhere very dark, isn't it? That is the remains of a smart butt plug. I think we drove this one to destruction actually to see what voltage we could get through it, and it it actually got to the point where it was vibrating so hard, your hand started to go numb. But anyway, I think we blew that one up at B-Side Glasgow a few years ago. But anyway, what bothers me is I think people need to think about the device and what it does. Does it have a camera? So where are you going to put it? Are you going to put that device in your bedroom? Are you going to put it facing into your house? And I think we just need to have that really practical thought process for people. Yeah. It's got a microphone so it can listen to you. Hopefully only the right people listen to you. It's got a camera. Well, what happens if something is wrong with the security? What happens if something is wrong with that Swan CCTV camera? I think we just need as consumers to have a sensible hat on going, well, some of the most private and intimate moments, might be involving, smart sex toys. So how sure are we that those devices are safe? One of the things that alarms me is sales of these devices has gone up dramatically during the lockdown. And I get it, I really do. It's being able to have a remote, intimate relationship with someone. I get it. It's very difficult during a lockdown to have any sort of a consensual or intimate relationship physically. So I understand why, but those are the areas that I feel really, really concerned about, bringing those sort of devices into my home.
Some of the viewers that we have are not security professionals and might want, for example, to have loads of IoT in their house and have the remote control Hoover and the kettle and everything, right? So if you could give them 3 pieces of advice of what they could do to make that more secure, what would you say to them?
Okay, so for the non-techie, I'd say the number one is, please use a sensible password, use a password manager to create your user accounts. You're going to have an account on the mobile app. It's going to have an API interface. Make sure you've got a sensible password. If the app offers MFA, use it. Next thing I'd recommend is putting as many of your IoT devices as you can onto a separate VLAN. Even some of the most basic Wi-Fi gear you can buy on the market will support VLANs, and you can manage segregation. Again, a bit more technically involved, so my grandma couldn't do that, but she can be sensible with passwords, and she can also check the device for updates. The mobile app, the device probably brings firmware updates down via the mobile app, so click the button that says updates and see what happens. And if there's an update ready, apply it to the device. I think what really makes me sad is that still the average consumer doesn't appreciate that updates are primarily there to solve security issues. We know that in our industry, but average Joe thinks that updates are giving you new emojis and new backgrounds for Zoom and that sort of thing. But actually, as we all know, they're there to fix security bugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people read about you and follow you and sort of see what you're up to?
So follow me on Twitter if you like. My handle is the Ken Monroe Show. Sorry about that; wasn't the best chosen handle. But you can also read the blog at pentestpartners.com, and we publish new research there every 2 or 3 days. Some of it's lighthearted. Some of it's very serious, but there's lots of advice and good practice guides on there too. Thank
you so much for coming on, Ken. We really appreciate it. And if you want to catch up with Ken, go follow him on Twitter. He posts a lot of very interesting stuff, and you can keep up to date with what's going on and the disclosures that he's doing. So thank you very much for watching, and thanks for coming, Ken.